Not a massively shock horror video today, although I feel actually an important one, or at least something to think about. Not all my videos in recent times have been like so many of the others in the so-called truth and freedom movement, the sort of, oh my God, look what just happened type video, because, well, to be honest with you, I don't want to shock people or scare people or do the devil's work by frightening people and keeping people somewhat scared about what's going on in the world, because I don't really think that helps. And many of the videos that you see who are trying to reveal stuff seem to be working not deliberately for the other side, but they just seem to be keeping people in fear, which I don't think is a good thing. Obviously, you can't keep your head buried in the sand and say everything's all a bed of roses and there's nothing to worry about. But we can be concerned about more important things that relate to us rather than perhaps things that are on the other side of the world or too questionable to know whether it's true or not. And that's where I'm trying to focus my attention in the videos that I'm doing. And I'm demonetized at the moment, as you may know, which means I'm not earning anything from YouTube, and as a result of that, I don't need massive views. I think if you're after big views and you've got yourself a business in which you're relying on YouTube, then of course you're needing to get people to watch your videos, and hence the, oh my God, look what just happened type video is what you need, because people seem to prefer to go to that. Anyway, so today, what am I talking about in my monologue? I've been reading this book, which is Grass-Fed Nation by Graham Harvey, Getting Back to Food We Deserve. This was written in 2016, before the pandemic, before people started to wake up in massive amounts. But this is about food, and about particularly how we've been duped into believing that we don't need meat. Now, this is something that we know that the globalists are trying to get us to stop eating meat. We're seeing all this vegan stuff at the moment, or vegetarian. And of course, there's nothing wrong with food that is from plants, but these plants that people eat have got to have the nutrients in them. They've got to have the minerals and the vitamins. And we have seen the industry of farming over the last 80 years, possibly 100 years now, changed from small-scale farming, which I often talk about, to this great big monoculture, large farms, huge scale. And we're seeing at the moment farmers are being targeted by the government, by DEFRA, to grow anything but food, flowers, trees, you name it, anything, because the farming that has been done, that has been proposed and, what would you call it, persuaded by government to use this sort of monoculture farming, in which pesticides, insecticides, herbicides and all the rest have been used on food, which has poisoned not only the food itself, but also it's poisoned the land, and the soil has depleted and has run off into the rivers and disappeared. And this has been a huge problem, thanks to the government's making. And farmers, bless them, have been trying to keep a roof over their head and trying to provide food, but have been turned into commodity makers by upscaling and getting themselves embroiled in these big contracts, which is very difficult to pay off. And now, as a lot of farmers are in their late 60s and they're all thinking, I want to get out, they're being offered £1,000 an acre to have solar panels all over the place. Anything but farming, it seems to be. And of course, we know that if you reduce the amount of farming, you're actually going to reduce the amount of food that is available for us. But don't worry, people like Bill Gates have got it all covered, because he's got synthetic burgers. And we've been told, have we not, that we're going to be eating insects, and we've got to get used to having some different type of food and not meat. Well, even if you're eating meat, for God's sake, don't eat it from the supermarket, because the supermarket foods are being sold stuff from the bigger producers who are feeding grain, wheat, which is not so good, but grain, to cows, cattle, pigs, and poultry and everything. And this is not a natural thing for animals to eat. And in Grass-Fed Nation, I've been fascinated to read, and it confirms what I already knew, that grass, and a variety of grass, including all sorts of herbs and flowers, wildflowers, is absolutely vital for the cows to thrive on. They don't get ill, they keep well, but their meat is absolutely full of all the good things that are beneficial to us. And if you go back to the hunter-gatherers that we once were, this is exactly the type of meat that we were eating, with the correct type of fats that we need to be healthy. We've been sold such a pack of lies over the last 50 years about whether we should not eat butter and we should have margarine and all these weird sort of seed oils and various spreads that we were told was, yes, low fat and get rid of cholesterol and all of this sort of stuff. And actually, it's all been a lie, and it's all sort of been coming out more recently that this is the case, that we actually need to eat proper fats and butter and milk, raw milk, non-pasteurized, homogenized, standardized milk, which is just no more really than paint stripper. It's just a whitewash in colour, but doesn't contain the bacteria that we need. And so this is something to be aware of when going to the supermarket. And I would urge people, and of course, do your own due diligence. Do your own due diligence on everything that I say, or any of the guests that I have, the wonderful guests that I have. Obviously, you just don't take what somebody says at face value when you hear them on the internet, or even read in a book. Do your own research. But grass-fed animals, that is what their natural environment was back in the day of the hunter-gatherers. That is what man used to go out and hunt when they were gathering in season to whatever berries and nuts and things that were available. And then when they could, they would slaughter an animal and they would eat every bit. And that is the way that we have evolved and nature has provided. And it's been incredibly beneficial. The problem is we've seemed to have got this thing up here and thought we're cleverer than nature, that we're far more intelligent, that actually there is a quicker fix, that if you cage up animals, keep them inside, don't let them out on the prairies, on the pastures, eating real, proper, natural food, that if you feed them a less substantive food, such as grain and various other things, that somehow there is no difference between what an animal eats and the nutrients that his body creates. Well, we know that we are what we eat. Of course we know that. And if we eat crap, as most of us seem to be doing with the fast food that we eat and all the supermarket stuff that's so full of chemicals and flavorings and colorings and preservatives and E-numbers and actually things that are not meant to be in our body, no wonder we're getting ill and we're getting under the weather and we're not performing at our highest percentage, and that we're making stupid decisions because we seem to have done something to our brain that perhaps when a medical intervention is being offered that is really untested, has no historical precedence, but is being told that's the only solution to a so-called virus, that people are so dumbed down by possibly what they've ate and the propagandizing that's been fed to them through the telly, that they've been hypnotized. They've taken something which has been perhaps not the best thing they ever did, and now they're fighting that. Well, there are protocols to get rid of all of that, and of course eating proper, healthy, natural, nutrient full free food, not free, food, not nutrient free, nutrient full food with vitamins and things in the most natural way is absolutely essential to keep us able to fight all this poison that is being shoved into the water, into the sky from the radio waves that we are surrounded by. And this is why we need to support as much as we can small-scale farming. It just comes back to this one thing, and I know people find it very difficult to listen to this or be interested in it, but it's the health of the nation and the health of the viewer watching this. Small-scale farms who are feeding their animals with grass and variants of grass, the wild animals, the sorrel, the trefoil, the clovers, the legumes, whatever it is, to keep the nutrients into the soil, that's into the plants, that gets into the bellies of the animals, that makes them healthy and not full of all the farming interventions that they then need under industrial scale farming. Small, local, seasonal farms with grass-fed food, and not the grain, not shoved up and locked up under artificial light for all year round. Yes, in the winter when it's difficult, yes, they have to come, say, cattle have to come in. But on the whole, if we're eating nutrient-full food from what emulates what was happening in nature all those years ago, if we emulate our diet back to the hunter-gatherers and eating a lot of meat that is well fed, properly fed, with little medical rubbish put into them, we, as a result, are going to be incredibly healthy. We can rise above all the nonsense that is being pushed into our world from above, in the water and everything else, and we've got a better chance to survive. If we acquiesce and continue to go to the supermarket just because it is convenient, then what are you doing to your children, feeding them bags of crisps or loads of sweets and chocolates? We know that sweets, sugar is not a good thing. We know that too much carbohydrates are not a good thing. We know this. We're not stupid, although we have acted stupid. And so I urge, this is a great book, worth getting hold of a copy if you can, Grass-Fed Nation, getting back to food that we deserve. I wasn't sent this, I'm not paid to say it, I'm interested in this. Graham Harvey used to be the agricultural advisor to the Archers. He's written a couple of other books. We Want Real Food is one of them, and The Destroying of the Countryside, in which he goes through the process of showing how we have, in the last 80 years, destroyed this countryside, got rid of the small-scale farms, got rid of the type of farming that was actually beneficial to us and kept us in spirit, that it's turned from a way of life in which people were working on the land, rewarded for their hard work by the lifestyle that they had, and that we have now turned it into a factory, into an industry that it need not be, and that we need to get back into that and support as much as we can the small-scale farmers who are providing wholesome food, because otherwise the health of the nation, which is bad enough, is going to spiral out of control. Turn your backs on those so-called supermarkets with their non-food and go and invest your effort and time and your health in those small-scale farms that are providing the best we can. We need them, and we need you to support them.